Hey guys, it's Matt Hanham here and welcome to the Amplify Your Business podcast. Welcome to another episode of the show. My guest today is Richard Bell. Richard has been named one of Australia's top 50 emerging leaders. He's an expert in rapid business growth. He's an investor, consultant, advisor, speaker, and honestly, that introduction barely does him justice. Richard, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're sitting here in the morning of the Amplify or Get Amplified event that we're running, a little ahead of schedule, but we're here in podcasting. And look, mate, I'm just really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think, as we were saying before, this event is, one of those events that small business owners need. I think there's a lack of good quality events, that really help business owners and educate business owners and put them in front of great people so that, they can go to that next level.
Yep. Fantastic. So before we kick into it, I might just go a little bit personal. So do you want to just tell me something about you? Because people know about you a little bit. I think you have your profile and your presence online, but you don't really dig in too deep at times. What's something about you that your friends and family and maybe your Insta followers wouldn't know?
Yeah, great question. What's something about me? Probably that I actually get really nervous when I do one-on-one stuff. And this is okay, but one-on-one stuff makes me more nervous and I guess think about stuff more articulately than when I'm on stage. So put me in a room with 1,000 people in front of them and I'm totally fine. In a one-on-one conversation, I can get a little bit, maybe socially awkward, which no one would ever know about me. But yeah, it's just a small thing that my friends and family would know that if I'm put into an uncomfortable situation one-on-one, I'm not that great.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why do you think you've got comfort in the crowd?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe from a young age, I've been on stage or in front of people, and I guess you learn how to develop showmanship, or you learn how to when you're on. I guess, but when you're in a one-on-one situation, you've really got to work on dropping that guard and getting vulnerable, and that's probably been a challenge of mine throughout my career. Is just ensuring that you come from a place of vulnerability and kind of drop that business guy mask. It's
sort of easy to broadcast in a way, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, of course.
Like this in a sense. Like we just get to talk and then whoever listens can listen later.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think the business world has been crafted of, figureheads, and we're not that great at being the real person that we are, Rich the husband or Rich the father or Rich the brother or, Rich the guy that on Sunday morning cooks bacon and eggs for his family. You kind of don't really broadcast that side. I think maybe it's an element of protection or, defense mechanism, I suppose. But yeah.
So going into business leaders, I think I read somewhere, like I know you're on a bit of a quest to basically own an equity stake in 50 companies. And I think that came from something you read about Richard Branson. Yeah,
totally. I can remember when I was 15 really clearly reading his book. And when I read his book, it was Losing Your Virginity. And, I remember thinking to myself, like just trying to compartmentalize that at 15, like how someone could own 400 different companies. And the distinct, I guess, tagline that stood out for me from Branson was, he said, I was in a phone box in London making cold calls. And at that point, he decided that he wanted to build an empire, and obviously that's 400 companies later. And when I guess, dug deep inside myself and figured out what makes me tick, it was actually the growth of companies and the growth of people. And, creating great businesses with great people that do great things is what we do. So it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek moment. The vulnerable 15-year-old kid, naive, thought, well, if he can own 400, maybe I can start with a goal of 50. So it's taken a long time to, I guess, build up the credibility, the money, the network to kind of do that. But we're on our way. We're 8 in with 42 to go.
18, 40 to go. Well, I mean, it's a long way, but I assume like anything, right? There's still a curve to it, and it's going to be a lot easier as you get sort of higher up in that curve to put the numbers on. But I mean, look, you're not actually trading a business essentially at this point that I know of, and from what I can see in the communication, you're probably one of the busiest guys I know.
Yeah.
From what I said, so and I like that because clearly you're putting a lot of effort and it's spread across a lot of different companies. But tell me about that. I mean, you're getting a lot done. day to day from what I see, and you're putting a lot of time and effort into the companies. How do you manage that focus and energy as you start to broaden across several different companies?
Great question. I think for me, I learned really early on in my journey that the minute you're operational in any business is the minute you're actually in real trouble. A business isn't actually about the person who started the business running the business. The business is actually about an engine or a group of a collection of people and products and services and culture and energy that actually develops a product or service and obviously gets paid money for that, etc. It actually has very little to do with the person that founded the business. And that's where I would say that 90% of business owners make the mistake. They view a business as, I started it, it's my business, I like making the coffee, I like cleaning the pool, I like doing the design. When in actual fact, that's just a subcontractor, or you've brought yourself a really good job. So for me, in any business I get involved with now, I am never operational. I'm always either the founder or the investor or the person that sits on the board, because there's no way that I can have the impact I want to have or build a quality company if the company relies on me. The only company that relies on me now is Business Leaderz Group, which is our advisory and investment firm, right? So I'm operational in that. Of course I am, because I've got to look at the investments and look at the strategy, et cetera. But if I then drop and get operational into my other companies, I'm done, right? Yeah. So as I said, I'm a big believer in a business being an organism or an engine that produces something that's of great value, that makes profit and makes money without you in it.
It's so interesting that people really just don't struggle to come to that sort of perspective, because you look at the numbers of failure across businesses and they're huge. Yet, look, I'm a former insolvency accountant. I've watched many people emotionally crumble off the back of their business failure. Yet they don't ever build it like it's a vehicle that's separate to them. They focus on it, and it's built and becomes part of them. They know the stats. The stats are not good, and they think they can be that lone horse. Like, how do you deal with that when you're looking at new investments, and how do you find the right kind of founders and co-founders to work with and the right ideas?
Yeah, I think for me it's always been a kind of order of backing the founder first. That's kind of a cliche in investment world, but it's so true. Like, if the business model's wrong, but I have a good founder, they'll adapt. And most of the time, whenever you invest in a business now, what that model looks like in 3 to 5 years' time is going to be different anyway. So my first thing is to back a founder, someone with energy, hunger, drive, who genuinely wants to be successful. The second thing is I look at the intention of the business. If the intention is just to make money, then I'm never going to touch it, because I think there needs to be purpose before profit in anything. And that doesn't mean that you don't strive for wealth or you don't strive for profit, but unless you can give good value to your customer, unless you have good intentions with your team and what you're doing is pure, and people actually get value and there's a good transaction there, it's never going to grow past, let's north of $1 million anyway. I think the reason businesses fail is because people fail to actually understand business. Now that sounds stupid, but like a great, person who builds chairs is amazing at making chairs. Where entrepreneurs fail is they've got this vision and this why and this crazy idea, but they actually struggle or fail to understand what business is. They fail to understand how sales talks to marketing, what operations means, what a P&L is, how to craft a business plan, how to manage and lead, the key skills which I call business. It's like they miss it. They have that kind of, top level vision, but then when it comes to running the actual company and building a company out and building the systems and the processes and stuff that is required to actually grow a company, for them to step out of it, it's like that's a missing piece.
It's easy for them to focus on the product or the service, right? And that's what they tend to do. Like, if I make that better, everything else will happen. In actual fact, you almost need to turn your back on that in a sense. Keep that as a small piece of the equation and start looking at the organism, as you say, because if you get that right, you can pivot. You can make that adjustment.
Of course you can. Apple's the perfect example. They've never gone to market with a perfect product. iPhone 1 was crap. iPhone 2 was crap. iPhone 3 was crap. They just keep iterating, but we're brought into the brand and what they've developed. That's why we keep buying them. It's the perfect business model. If iPhone 1 or iPhone even 5 was great and they say it's the best one they've ever done, there wouldn't need to be iPhone 10X.
No.
But they continue to do that.
Put 3 out every time.
They continue to do that because they're iterating around their product or market. So like you said, if you get the foundations and the fundamentals right of what the company is, the right people, the right purpose, the right vision, and you build the business to operate without you can always pivot into products and services.
So on just sliding into impact there, which you sort of touched on a little bit, you've just done a national tour with Hancock Creative and you're getting out there in front of a lot of people. How do you focus on impact versus profit, and how do you drive, I guess, both? And what is your focus?
Yeah, good question. My focus has always been intention. So the intention has never been about making money, and it probably was when I was younger, if I'm honest. But what I've realised is as you get older and you develop more wealth and you have more success, it's actually quite an empty feeling anyway. And then I've also discovered that businesses that are driven by that are never going to go the distance because it's just about what's going to line their pockets. So for me, it's got to be a win-win-win. It's got to be a win for the consumer. It's got to be a win for the business, and it's got to be a win for the staff. But my personal philosophy around it is as long as that business has genuine intention with what they're doing, and as long as that business can, does the product or the service does a great thing for society, or, if it's a gym, helps someone get fitter. If it's a digital marketing agency, genuinely delivers results. If it's an accounting firm, make sure that their numbers are clean and they have on-time reporting. At a basic level, making sure what they do is genuine and they can deliver on that. But then more of at a philosophical level, for me, I didn't come from money. I was very poor and I lived in a car for 4 to 5 months of my life early on, and so for me it's more of an obligation thing. I think people who are driven by money and fame and success are shallow, and I think that business people need a bit of a sidekick to the head to realise that they're actually in a great position of power, and it's actually about having a bit of responsibility there and doing the right thing.
So how do you, when you're building this group of 50 companies, how do you pick and choose? Are you happy to be weighted in one industry a little bit heavy because you found the right founders and you found the right business with the right impact, or are you sort of trying to broadly cross-section different industries, or how does that work?
For me, I've never invested it in sectors. If I look at our current portfolio, we've got digital marketing, tech startups, massage on demand, fitness, accounting and finance, education. So for us, it's always been broad. I think I lean towards service-based businesses just because, I don't know why, maybe I'm more comfortable there. Service-based businesses, whether it's B2B or B2C is fine. I'm not really a widget guy, so I'm not really into products, probably because I haven't got that much knowledge in, manufacturing from China or et cetera. So I think for me, it's about looking at, as back to that topic before, it's about looking at business. It's not about the sector. And I think too many people get caught up on what's happening in their sector and government and but if you look at the best companies that have disrupted sectors, they're people that have started companies from outside the sector. Perfect example. Ford have been making cars for 120 years. Google and Apple come in and they'll be making cars in the next 5 or 10 years, but their advantage is they've never made cars.
It's such a huge advantage. And look, I've talked about this before, where I actually haven't started a business where I knew anything about what I was starting every time. And that helped me, like we talked about earlier, to stay off the tools, so to speak. But also it just means you look at it with a totally different lens. You come at it with some experience in another sector or industry and you're like, well, why are they doing it like that? But everyone in that industry has got their blinkers on and they can only see the same way that's been done for 20 years and they just keep marching forward. And you're like, well, that's madness. Like you could save 30% of your costs by doing it this way. And they're like, nah, we just don't do it like that.
Yeah.
And that's just so common, and it's scary, right?
Yeah, it is. I think Ledger, our management accounting and bookkeeping firm, is the classic example of that. You know, I'm not an accountant or a bookkeeper, but I come from the business owner lens. And I'm like, I get what you have to do from a tax compliance point of view, but I actually don't really care about that. I just want to see these numbers every month so I can run my company better. Where the sector looks at it from what does an accountant want to see, and they fail to understand, no, actually, we're not selling to accountants. What does the client want to see? So I think it's easy to sum it up in two ways. People who come from outside an industry operate with a consumer hat on. What does the consumer want to be happy? People that are inside the industry fail to see the consumer's perspective most of the time.
Love it. So take me back, I'm going to sidestep a little bit. Take me back to the early Entourage days. I think there was 5 staff maybe. You've got on board. I know you sort of bet everything into it where you were at the time, and you've gone and taken it from roughly a $2 million company into, I think, 19 or 20. What does that look like at that point when you make that decision to go all in and jump on board with Jack and turn that into a reality?
Look, I mean, it was probably one of the most enjoyable, gut-wrenching, exciting, passionate times of my life. It was hard on the family. It was hard on my wife. It was hard on people around me because, when you go from, as I said, when you, it's one thing to own properties, which I always have, but when you actually start to suck money out of them and risk it all and put them all on the line, and if it doesn't work out, you actually have nothing. That's when the game starts to get real. And that's when the game got real for me. That was 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. And, I can't explain the feeling, when you're going from 5 staff to 100 staff in just under 2 years, you're hiring 5 or 6 people a week, it's full on. I was, sitting in the CEO chair with, 8 executives reporting to me who were all between 40 and 50, and I was 25, in a pretty crazy sector at the time as well, education and vet. There was a lot happening. Jack was a phenomenal founder and a phenomenal leader as well. So you had all of the media attention around, and there was a lot of great things happening. We were helping a lot of businesses. There was a lot of success, a lot of failures. But look, it was, as I said, one of the most enjoyable, but at the same time, one of the most gut-wrenching times of my life, because you've literally, your growth curve is just like that. I often get asked about the Entourage story. And it was, they continue to do great things. I still own, I'm the 3rd largest shareholder in the Entourage still. I step back operationally to focus on, my vision and Business Leadrz Group. And they're one of my many companies now.
Fantastic. So to sidestep, I don't really talk property very often on here. It's more small business, but I have been involved in a bit of property in my time, and it's probably something I should do a bit more of. But I hear you bought your first property leveraged off a credit card or some sort of unsecured debt, and I'd love to hear that story. And was it just potluck that you met at the market helped you there, or what happened?
Look, I try not to talk about that one, but I'm happy to. So effectively, I just had this thing that if you had property, you were rich, knowing nothing about it, right? And still don't know that much about property. But I remember someone saying, look, the banks are doing 95% mortgage lends, and I'm like, great, that means I only need $22,000 and I can get first homeowners grant. I definitely lived in it. So you can get the first homeowners grant, so I can get a house. I think I was 19 or 20 or something, and so I had good income, and I just needed to find the deposit, right? So this was made in a decision was made from I'm going to buy it to buying it in about 6 days. So I went to Bank A and Bank B and got 2 credit cards with the limits of $12,500, and then because you can only withdraw $2,000 per day, so I went back every day 6 days in a row until I had my $24,000 or whatever I needed. I then went and put that into Bank.
Put a lot of effort into this.
I then went and put that into Bank 3. Wrote a check as if it was my savings. And then I submitted that, and my home loan got approved. And then obviously I was in a bit of challenge because I didn't realise that it was 20%, per month ticking over on both of those credit cards. So, and I actually signed the contract unconditional. I didn't understand what subject to finance was either. So, look, call that one a luck or learning. But it was. Look, hey, I still got that property today. I won't sell it.
Well, you create the outcome, right? If you put yourself in a situation, it's up to you. What are you going to do? You're going to allow it to fail, or are you going to find a way out?
Yes.
So kids at home, don't do that. That's not the right approach.
No.
Go see someone and find out what to do.
Go and get some great financial advice. Not offer financial advice, but definitely get financial advice.
So you touched on earlier. Obviously, you're very busy. You've got a lot. I mean, you've got a big travel schedule. There's a lot going on. How do you balance with the family? I mean, you're not 30 yet, right?
No.
So you're under 30. You've got 3 kids. How do you balance the family time, the quality, versus quantity sort of ratio, and give everything to everything that you're doing?
Yeah. Look. The true answer there is I don't. I don't think anyone does. It's a battle that I am trying to get right every day. I miss my family when I'm away a lot. But I think I've always had a philosophy that your kids will actually see what you do, not what you say. And look, if I can sacrifice a bit of time, but they know and they're taught how to follow their passion, how to follow their purpose, how to have drive in life, and not just live that normal life of go to school and get good grades and get a job, and they can see daddy driving his passions and doing what he loves, then I think that's the best gift that I can give them in the world. And that does come with some sacrifice, and I cop some heat for that, but I suppose that is, like anything, it's if you're a professional athlete or you're a dedicated person at a high level to anything, there is a level of sacrifice that has to come with that.
It's funny how business cops the raw end of that as well. Like, we're in WA, we're sitting in Perth right now, and if you're a FIFO family, no problem. No problem. 2-3 weeks at a time. We understand. Like the family's split up, no problem. You work a few late nights and you do a little bit of travel around in the business aspect. Everyone's like, "What are they doing? What's going on over there?" Yeah.
No. Hey, I agree. I often say, if I was a sports person or an actor or something like that, it's kind of accepted. But you're a business person, so you're greedy and you're doing it for yourself and. That's the kind of the response you get. But I think, look, I do definitely try and take regular breaks. And I've made a few rules for myself in 2019, and that is that the family will come with me on sort of 30% of travel, just to make sure that we still stay connected, et cetera. But hey, I think no one has it right.
It's always a challenge. It's a quest, right? You've got to figure out and always make a decision. It's personal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. People just try and blanket an answer on it. There is no answer. It's how, and there's balance might be one thing in 1 month and a different thing 3 months later. You've got to work out where life's at.
Yeah. I think there's times in business as well where you've just got to go, right? And you've just got to make sure that doesn't last for 15 years. Yeah,
which a lot of people do wrong. I mean, how many times do you see someone, to go back to the mine example, I'm just going to do that for 12 months and save up some cash and then, put it into this investment or this business or this whatever. And then next thing you know, 12 years later, they're still sitting there working 2-3 weeks at a time away and 5 days back, and they sleep for that whole time and they don't see the kids, and that happens. So, you've got to understand what time limits, what are you going to place on yourself and have those rules. So I'm just going to wrap up with a few quick little questions because we've got to get you on the stage.
Yes.
So if you could take one book into solitary confinement for a year, what would it be?
Oh, that's a cracker question. Look, I reckon it would have to be How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Good book.
I read that. I've read it about 5 times. Yeah. I think in business, you need to be able to understand humans and connect and talk and manage and lead and sell. And I think, I think that would be that for sure.
It's a good book. What's your favourite Disney or cartoon character?
Definitely Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck. He's just, I don't know, he's kind of goofy, but he's a bit cool as well.
Is that how you see yourself? Because I find people usually pick one that they sort of identify with.
No, I don't think so. I just used to like him as a character, you know.
Cool. And what's one weird app that you have on your home screen? Or is it a really cool app or a weird, obscure app? Something that you got on your phone.
Yeah, what have I got on my phone? A weird app. Probably the app that measures how much screen time you have.
Yeah. Good app. Scary app.
Yeah. I forget the name of it. And
Screen time, is it the new version on iPhone?
Yeah. It's an actual app though, and it tells you what you were looking at. And so I tend not to look at it, but it's on my phone.
Yeah. All right. And to wrap up, Rich, what's the one thing that you would say to people for them to amplify their business right now?
Go back to purpose and go back to intention, and make sure that you can go the distance and you're not after a quick win, a quick bit of money, or a quick sale. Because unless that is right, you will never be fulfilled and you'll never be happy. So even if you've got to scale right back to figure out what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, what's the intention, and what you're trying to build long term, it's going to be a very hard journey.
Love it. Where can people find out a bit more about you and Business Leadrz Group, Rich?
Yeah, they can jump onto our website, which is businessleaders.com, or they can
with a Z, right?
With a Z, leaders. It's just a bit of attitude there, So
I noticed.
Or they can pop my EA an email, which is Renee RENEE at businessleaders.com.
Fantastic. Well, look, thanks very much for joining us on the show. Can't wait to see you drop a big keynote very shortly. And thanks for being at the day, mate. Really
great.
Happy to have you here.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Hey guys, it's Matt here, and thanks so much for listening to the Amplify Your Business podcast. It means the world to me that you've listened all the way through, and I'd love it if you could share it with your friends.